Tired of the hype about living the dream? It's time for truth. This is the place for tools, power, and real talk so you can create the life you dream and deserve. Your ultimate life. Subscribe, share, create. You have infinite power.
Hey there, and welcome to this episode of Your Ultimate Life, the podcast that I created with lots of help to help people live their ultimate life, a life of purpose, prosperity, and joy that you have ability and authority to create from your skills, gifts, and life experience. Today, I've got a couple of guests. This particular episode is one of the special Thursday episodes about coaching. And what we're going to explore here is we're going to explore the rise of AI, artificial intelligence, and what it will or won't do to coaching and the experience that these two coaches have got. So, Lori and Tabatha, welcome to the show.
Thank you. Glad to be here.
You are both welcome and delightful. I know that both these women are coaches and coach different things, and that doesn't really matter what they coach. So I'm not going to direct this. It's just going to be some conversation. I'll ask a couple questions, get started, and then we'll talk about it and go from there. So it's not formatted. Tabatha, I'm curious, and I'll probably ask you this too, Lori. How do you use AI, not just to find recipes? I'm saying that because my wife does that. Not just for that or to write emails, but how are you using one or other model of AI in your coaching right now?
Thank you so much for that question. The way that we use AI is really in automations, right? Because we have a coaching business, it has helped us to streamline some things that we would do normally on a regular basis, but we have been able to implement it so it made life so much easier to have those repeatable processes now done through automation using AI specifically to help us with some of the tasks that we've been doing. So it essentially has allowed us to get back some more hours in our day.
Do you find that lets you handle more clients, or maybe that wasn't the objective? Maybe it's just to reduce the time involved. Do you find that it helps you that way?
Oh, yeah, it absolutely allows us to service more clients because we don't, when they sign up, like they take them through the onboarding process, as well as the opportunity for them to send us some correspondence, as well as people that may go to our website. Excuse me, for example, it will allow them to be able to get some questions answered a lot quicker. So it's driven some efficiencies in the business for sure.
Cool. Lori, so I'm more curious about the same thing. Are you, and if you are, how are you using, and I didn't ask any of this ahead of time, so listeners, I have no idea what they're doing with it or not doing. Lori, what's your relationship in the context of your business with AI?
I would say it's pretty intimate, actually, the relationship that is. I am using it for actually as a thought partner in developing proposals, in putting together programs, and also in helping even sometimes even before a coaching call when I know that something is coming up. And so I'll, explore different approaches. I've used it in also some for lead generation. And also, I'm exploring right now, have a relationship with an AI company that is actually, it's called Piloteer. And it actually is a way to give primarily mid-market companies feedback to their staff or from their staff to their staffs, as well as biased feedback to the CEOs in such a way that this is not to eliminate coaching, but to actually give an opportunity, because they don't, that particular platform doesn't provide like AI coaching, but it does help provide the feedback and then the coaching becomes the piece that is delivering the models, the actual face-to-face one-on-one coaching.
Cool. So, if you look if you look in the future, like in writing the book, Coaching in the Rise of AI, it took me about 4 months, and the first month or so was spent many hours a day just doing research, and I analyzed a bunch of 11 coaching models that exist in the world, their promised outcomes, and their vulnerabilities to AI in terms of what they do and what AI might do and so forth. And I noticed two things. One is I noticed in the 4 months it took me to write it, the skills and capability of AI doubled in that period of time. Mm-hmm. And what I also noticed is that lots of coaching models are very, very, very vulnerable to AI. At least that's how it occurred to me. And so the question for you guys is, if you look in the future, 3 months, 6 months, a year, what do you think's going to happen? If anything, maybe you think it's not a big deal, but what do you think's going to happen in the coaching industry? And I don't care who talks first.
Yeah, I'll talk first. So I believe that the space of coaching is going to change drastically from the standpoint of how much people rely on Chat GPT or one of the other coaching models, primarily as a thought partner, right? Like as Lori was saying. And I've seen where that has already started to happen. Like I believe the last time I looked up the stats, it was like 71% of companies have implemented some sort of AI, at least in one of their practices within their business. So the fact that companies are already moving at the speed of light with implementation, coaching and clients, the same. They're looking at it as their new Google. And so they're relying upon the information that's coming across. So there is a lot of legitimacy around it changing at the speed of light, literally. And so just from some of my clients, I see them relying on it a lot more as well.
It's a funny thing, Lori, I want you to think about that too, but the guy that wrote the foreword for the book is a hotshot coach and makes a lot of money and has for a long time, is very successful. And that's why I asked him to write the foreword. And he loved it. And he said, one of the things he said in the foreword was a funny story. He said he had an argument or some kind of a disagreement with his wife, and they went to bed, and the next morning she was all tuned up. No problem at all. And he asked what happened. And she said, "Oh, I had a conversation with Chat GPT and it coached me through this thing and I'm all tuned up." And he's like, boom. Yeah, that. Right. And he told that story in the foreword as preface. So anyway, it just reminded me of that when you said that.
Yeah.
So Lori, what do you think?
Yeah. Well, first of all, I appreciate Tabatha bringing the statistical analysis into the conversation. I think that's your gift, Tabatha. Something that I would rely on you and chat for. That being said, I kind of have like one of these forks in the road kind of when I think about the future is potentially it could go one way or the other, right? And I will just give you some context around this. I'm developing a program that would specifically designed for Gen Z, doing a live version of it, but trying to figure out how to transition to an all self-guided platform. And in that exploration have run into opportunities where AI avatars can actually have group conversations and with sensing AI actually read the emotional tendency, etc. All of that being said, in the inquiry about actually developing this program, there's a huge piece in there around psychological safety that I think is, you could look at it from, oh, well, the bot is going to give me all the psychological safety I need. And case in point, when I was working with Piloteer, I got feedback from it and I was like, I'm so glad I got my feedback from it and not my husband to your story, right? Because it would have been a completely different conversation. But all along the way, I do feel that as a somatic coach, we're flesh and blood. And I think that they're much like, Gen Z is putting their phones down now. They don't want to bring the electronics into the space anymore. I would imagine that there would be some backlash from that. And I think that you're seeing it now. You're seeing what will be exaggerated in the future. There'll be this clash of old versus new. And there will be people who will always want to have the traditional face-to-face and community conversations, real time. And the simulation of humanity, as close as it is, it ain't humanity. So, I'm kind of, is it wishful thinking? Maybe. But I think that, it all depends upon who's in charge, right?
Yeah.
Of how in terms of how this is all going to evolve, both on Earth and beyond, right? In terms of destiny, of how we're going to shape, how we choose to shape it rather than it shaping us. I think it's going to be a co-creation.
So that's fascinating. A couple of things that I notice is I'm really bold in the book, and I'm going to probably piss a lot of people off, and that's okay because that's just Kellan. But one of the things I think is that the coaching world, the way that it's practiced right now, for the most part, is very vulnerable and will be completely hollowed out. And while I completely agree with you, Lori, there's always going to be a need and there's a total power in it. That's why I only say 95% of coaches are going to be out of business by Christmas of next year, which is the conclusion I came to. But the coaching that is, tools you learned, that kind of stuff, frameworks and tools and practices and, NLP and ontological stuff and a particular order of questioning. I mean, all that crap's going to evaporate, I think. That's my opinion, and I'm throwing that out there for you guys to either agree or disagree with. I don't care. But the reason is because AI can do that faster and better, and there's going to be, I think, we as coaches, we're going to have to do something completely different or way better than we're doing right now, or we're going to be out of luck and out to lunch. So what do you guys think about that?
I'm going to step in here because it's one thing to understand a model, and it's a whole other thing to take it out into the world and practice it and fall on your face and break your nose, right? And that for me, it's all about the experiential and the application. And then being in a vulnerable spot with your peers, for instance, or face-to-face with a coach to say, well, now what are you going to do, right? Now that you have that wake-up call, yes, a bot could do that, but the transference of the tools and models, yes, anybody's going to have access to all the above. But that does not guarantee that people are actually going to put it in play. And that's where I'm actually focused right now, is actually developing experiences that people are, going to be confronted and embarrassed and taken apart a little bit, which, as we know, sometimes that's what has to happen in order for the breakthrough to occur.
So let's go down that road a little bit. And Tabatha, I want your thought about in a minute. I agree with you. And I guess my observation, I've been to several coaching schools and learned lots of different methods, and I'm sure you guys have too. What I see, and the reason I think right today, coaches have a hard time making a living. I mean, more than 50% or 60% of coaches don't make over 50K. And like, we know those statistics. And the reason is because it's performative. And the coach is using the tools the way that they learned them, but there's no power. there's no true power to create the kind of transference that you're talking about.
Yeah.
In other words, they're talking about words, but they're not embodying the truth of the principles that they teach. And that's why I see this whole middle, and by middle, I mean like all of it almost being pulled out, because people aren't doing that today. I hear coaches say all the time to me, well, I'm really good at helping other people see and solve their problems, but when it comes to my own, I can't do this. And I want to scream when I hear that, because all that says is you're not a product of the product.
Exactly.
Because if you were a flipping product of the product, that wouldn't be true. So, Tabatha, what was your thoughts about all this?
Yeah, so I definitely agree that AI is not going to be able to replace that human element. And I know just from firsthand that having someone there that can give you the personal accountability and understand the emotional side of the problem that the person is going through, I think is going to be the thing that makes the difference. Like we're all heart-centered individuals. So being able to now connect with people on that interpersonal level is definitely going to be, I think, the thing that's going to allow that 5%, Kellan, to outshine and last in the marketplace. I do agree that a lot of people that are operating that are mediocre today in their coaching is going to see a drastic change and a withdrawal of people requesting services, because they're not able to really connect and address a lot of the pain points and or either topics that they may have. Now, that's not to say that the 5% is not going to have to adjust somewhat, but I think starting now and understanding the real power of AI that's the secret to it, right? Because you get to utilize that for what it is. However, find your USP in that, right? Your unique selling proposition, and then move forward with that in a trajectory that's going to allow people to be able to see themselves in your space and connect with you on those levels. I think it's going to make the difference.
So I had an interesting experience in the researching of this. I had a thread I put in Chatty, and I've had several names for it, but I've spent enough hundreds of hours in there that I have names for it. All right. So one thread was called 1 million words, and put all my books in there and podcast transcripts, and ask it, and it told me it was more like 4 million words. But anyway, okay, fine. And so when it talks to me, it talks like me, right? I mean, it's everything. It talks like me and everything else. And I ask it, okay, tell me who I am. And I understand its bias toward affirmation and all the rest of it. And I said, so no BS. I don't want any of that crap. I said, so cut the fluff and don't do, and I talk to it like that. And so tell me who I am. And so it wrote some stuff. And as I read it, I got emotional. Like I was emotionally affected by that. And at first it pissed me off. And I thought, how come I'm having this response? And so I said, okay, I'm having an emotional response to these words you said. Like your code, you can't do that. How come I'm feeling this way? And it said, I'm not doing anything. What I'm doing is reflecting who you are. Mm-hmm. And I thought, oh, okay, right? And so then after I said all that, I said, okay, fine. You do all this really good, and you do this good, and you do this good, and everything. What do you suck at? Like, what can't you do? Like, what are you, like, after did all these analysis of different models, what are you going to never do? And it said lots of stuff, but it said one line that I'm going to share with you that I think captures the essence of what you were talking about, Tabatha, and that is it said, I can't bleed. And I went, oh, okay, so let's start from there. You can't bleed, and all the things that means in terms of the truth of connection and everything. So what do you think are going to be the requirements that are different? Because I think the game's changed, like big time, not a little, but like a lot. So what do you think is going to have to change for coaches to stay like really in the game?
I think you're pointing to it with the depth of, and also what Tabatha was saying about that normalization that comes from true vulnerability, right? I've been there, right? Chat can only talk about what it would be like if it was there, but it's never there, right? So I think that your experience of that depth of reflection is something that I think every coach aspires to, but only some can really do, right? Or actually stepping into that state of being with someone is, from my perspective, that is when the work really shifts, right? When somebody actually feels gotten at every level and have themselves reflected back to them at a level that, obviously for you, it blew you away. And when there's somebody that doesn't look like me and doesn't sound like me is reflecting me back to me, is like, wow, I'll follow you anywhere, kind of thing. And so I think that what's required is the de-armoring of our state of being, right? There's that sort of code of, sort of, I'm not gonna get sucked into my client's world, thing. And I've got mixed feelings about that. It's like, if I'm armored up to the point where I'm not actually really truly in their world with them, I think that we've lost something. And that means that I have to bring my, my portable safety with me, right? And my boundaries. So, it's a complicated issue, I think.
Yeah, I think that there is some complication there, but I believe that we'll define it as we go along, right? Like, I always like to say that as a coach, we owe it not just to ourselves, but to our clients to be on the cutting edge of innovation and our niche, right? Whatever it is that we're doing, we should aspire to master it. And I believe that that is going to be the thing that is going to set us apart when we are the best of the best that there is in that niche. Like when people think of what it is that you do, somatics, for example, they should literally think of Lori when they think of Kellan, the ultimate alchemist, right? There should not be another person that comes up, but that also means that we occupy that space in such a way to it's big that it is we take up more space when it comes to our sphere of genius. And I believe that that is going to be some of the things that is going to continue to set us apart and to be known for what it is that we do in the space of providing real transformation. So I do believe that that is going to be the thing that's going to become game changing for all involved in the space of coaching.
There's three things that Lori, did you have a thing you wanted to say?
Yeah, it was Tabatha was inspiring me. And she was giving me the thought, because I've had this direct experience. The idea of co-creation. You may have noticed that you started to think differently. I've noticed that I'm starting to be shaped by the sort of the tsunami of wisdom. It's wisdom, ancient wisdom, that is so much more available. And like that woman who, talked to chat so that she could get over her husband's whatever issue, right? it is evolving us as we're evolving it. And so, yes to everything Tabatha said, but I've noticed that personally, right? There's just a different sort of context in which we're living that we've never lived in this context ever before.
I've copied and saved a lot of stuff that it said, and I just save it in a folder about things. I'll ask it different stuff. And because I'm busy creating university and I've got like 200 and something pages of curriculum outlines and stuff already. And so I'm in the middle of doing all that, and I'll ask it all these questions from different angles. And sometimes it comes back with exactly what you said, those words that matter, because words carry power. In the leveling up of coaches, and I think that's what you're both saying, we got to level up, cutting edge, we got to be there. And if we're not willing, then we're part of that big chunk that's gone. There's three things that strike me as reasons we won't. And I don't mean us, but we coaches in general. One is the head in the sand thing, pretending it's not happening, or pretending it's not so bad, or pretending we have a long time. We have a negative 5 minutes. It's already here, right? So the head in the sand problem is one. The second thing is, I want you to imagine a big casino, and all the blackjack tables, a lot of them, and they're all full, but they're full of robots. And the only place there is for a human to sit down, excuse me, is in the high roller room where the ante is $10,000.
Mm-hmm.
Right? And so the ante has gone way up. And it being on the cutting edge that you said, that's hard, because that requires, you guys hear me talk all the time about daily creation and personal truth documents. That requires that we live and be that. If we're going to be the people who walk into a room and don't say anything, but the energy of our presence changes the conversation. Yeah, that's what we're talking about. But the barriers are head in the sand, the ante's gone way up, and this can be flipping hard to live that way. So that was sort of the thinking, and that's what I talk about, like all the time, but yes, in the book, whatever. I don't know. What do you guys think about that?
Oh, yeah. I would say, first of all, coaching and being an entrepreneur is not for the faint of heart, right? So it's not for the weak. It's not for those that are kind of wishy-washy, even though people do it all the time, every day. So when I was talking about occupying, I was in reference to becoming the person that has the ability to be able to lead at that level. That does not necessarily mean that we can take time off just because we feel like it, or push the easy button. You remember the little red easy buttons that came out? That was easy. Yes. No, that is not how this works, right? That's not how any of this works. So that definitely means that we have to engulf ourselves, or become even more determined about what it is that we're doing, right? I believe in being passionate and intentional about how we do things these days, right? So aligning with that passion allows you to say, as you quite often do, you get up with love in your heart and joy, and you're ready to take on the day, and your energy, right? Like I've learned just from being in spaces like this, that is a true thing. And so when I am, or I have the ability to allow people to experience that, I find that they want more of it the same way I wanted more of it. So it has to be at the forefront of a lot of the things that we do, more so than just being intentional about it. We have to be it, right? Live it, breathe it, and embody it every single day. So I think that that's really important.
Lori, what do you think?
Well, the words walking our talk is, it seems like a platitude, but that's the hard stuff, right? And I remember you saying in one of our shared moments together, Kellan, you've got to get your stuff handled, right? If you're somebody has got have unresolved issues and demons inside that you haven't, faced yet, people pick up on that. and they'll know, right, just by all of the signals that you put out. And so there's a purity of spirit, there's a generosity of listening, there's all the things that come with that state of being. And yeah, we all fall off every now and then. I mean, that's our imprint never disappears. It's
Right.
always there to wake us up. And it is a journey, and for I'm curious about how the generations coming up. We're mature beings, right? We've been around on the planet for a while. I feel like I've been on the planet for a good while, and I'm really concerned about what how the next generation will be equipped, right, to face their stuff. You call it, getting over their victimhood mindset. That is probably one of the number one things in the way for all of us. And we're living more and more in that victim culture. It's accepted. It's a blame game, and not me. I'm right there in the middle of it, of all that drama. But there's the walking the talk, which means that I am also not airing my challenges out as a way of getting attention, but a real truth telling about, when I've had those moments, so that people, especially the next generation, don't feel like they have to be the performative versions of themselves, which most of us are in our 20s anyway, right? There's nothing different or special about that. But in this particular, the set of concerns that this set of 20-year-olds is moving through is a completely different world. So how can we support them in doing the rapid growth place? So that's where my head's at right now, around that zone. But the future of it is going to depend upon a lot of how they start to walk their own talk and step onto the path of their own self-development.
I agree with you completely. And what it makes me think of is in the Navajo culture and some of the other Southwest Indian cultures, the grandmas are in charge of stuff. And in other native cultures, it's the old men, but it's the elders, right?
Mm-hmm.
And the elders have that wisdom, and they have this calling to be that, right? To be the accumulated wisdom and so forth. And in the last 30 years, at least, the coaching industry is sort of, I just saw an ad the other day by somebody, and I'm not going to mention who, because you probably will recognize it. Be a life coach, picture on the beach. You can make good income from wherever you want. And I thought, that is the stupidest ad I've ever seen. It's sucking into the idea that you're going to be able to do this from anywhere, when the truth of it is, at least to my opinion, and you guys are free to disagree, because of the rise of this technology, which allows us to mimic empathy and to give answers that are good and to do frameworks and accountability and all this stuff, and mimic even better, more and more empathy. The calling of this people nurturing and encouragement thing is becoming more like the elders, like more sacred, more something. And that's what I'm feeling like I got to do in order for it to matter. Otherwise, it won't. And so that's why I feel as urgent about it as I do. I don't know. Does that spark any thoughts?
Yeah, I definitely say that sparked lots of thoughts between you and Lori and what you just recently said. So we're in our grandparents' age, right? So I am an official Gigi, right? I always tell everybody I'm gonna be 25 forever. However, we think about in terms of legacy these days. And so, in some studies and research that we've been doing, it literally takes 1 to 2 generations to change an inherent core value or instill true change. And so, with that, we are already working with our grandbabies on what generational wealth looks like or the tendencies of what that could potentially be by teaching them real skills around money and what that looks like. But for them, they may never know life without AI, right? Because they're born under the premise of that. So taking into consideration that that's their truth, it is to our advantage to learn their perspective and potentially the world that they're going to live from. However, interject our core values of being heart-centered, so the two has to merge. Like there's not a way around this when we talk about the differences of where they live from. However, I do believe that we're living in the days of the ancient books of saying that the older people are called because they're wise and the younger people are called because they're strong. However, the generations grow weaker more so than wiser. And why is that? Because we have tools like this that's doing the work for them. So they don't cognitively have to think as much around some of the stuff. However, if they are more heart-centered, they'll learn how to manage and flow in a world that's ever changing. Outside of that, they could be caught up in all the flashiness of society. You were going to say something, Kellan. I'm sorry.
No, I actually opened my mouth to catch a fly. I'm thinking, I don't know. I want to talk about danger. Something you said made me think of danger. So we've talked about what AI is what it can do, what it can't do, etc. And you made me think about a danger. And that is, if I use AI to do a bunch of stuff that I don't need to do anymore because it does it better. One article I read, and it struck me, was the process that I would have gone through, and I'm not talking about mundane stuff, but the process that I would have gone through to do that thing, the thinking, the work, I'm now robbed of that process. And so the becoming that could have happened in me, I don't have anymore because that thing over there could do it so fast. And it's like atrophy, right? Spiritual, mental atrophy. And I think one of the things that worries me about this is that sort of thing. And I guess I wanted to flip the topic a little bit to dangers. And maybe I'm the only one, but are you seeing some things that concern you? Because I like the work, the mental, the spiritual work, because it tests me and it puts me through the fire and stuff, and I want that. And if I didn't have that, it's like, right?
Right. It does. If you don't spend enough time in the goo as the caterpillar, you'll never be the butterfly. And it's a well-worn metaphor, but you've got to do the reps to build the muscle, right? You've got to be able to, even if it's a New York Times puzzle, you've got to do something to keep the mind in shape. And I think you're absolutely right that, as a former dancer, I go to concerts now, or I, go to a nightclub where there's a band playing, a kick-ass band, and soulful, and I look behind me, and the people at the bar, they didn't even clap, and they're pouring their voices out, and it's almost like they're so in their heads that they can't even get up and tap their foot, right? And that to me is the danger, that we become so disembodied, right? We forget how to dance. We forget that we can move and express our bodies and our minds and our voices And if we don't do that, I mean, there are people who, what do they call it? I just learned this expression, the Gen Z stare,
Mm.
right? Where there's, it's, it's
I
either,
just learned it right now, so there you go.
it's either, I don't know what you're talking about, or that is the stupidest thing that I ever heard, or I'm just going to, like, I just cannot wait to get out of here. But that's like, that aversion and self-absorption that my way of perceiving the world is the way the world is. And that to me is one of the big dangers of this, is that we get the world reflected back to us in a particular way because we're the ones who are asking the questions to get the validation most of the time. And then there are people like, you, Kellan, and probably me and Tabatha as well, who are like, all BS aside, come on, let's talk about doomsday, right? What is it that's actually what's actually going to happen? And if we lose our connection to the 4 billion years of wisdom that lives below our neck and in our brains, then we're going to start to look differently. We're going to, we're going to be those aliens, I guess, with the heads up to here and the dinosaur arms.
Tabatha, are you seeing dangers?
Yeah, I think that the dangers, though, started some time ago with kids, like with the video games, for example, right? They don't go outside, they don't play as much, they're not as physical. So obesity is on the rise and so many other things. However, I do see that there's going to be folks like us, for example, that's going to ring the bell, set off the sirens to say, hey, you see where we're going, there's danger ahead. These are some of the things that need to be implemented, changed, and we'll see some normalizing of some of these tools, meaning that just like the computer came on, the computer is going to, it does its job. It made our world so much more efficient, but there's still the need for humans to do different aspects of it. So I do believe that at some point there'll be a normalizing of all of this, but we're going to go through the ugly phase to get there. Meaning that those that, I don't want to deal with that AI because the AI, is everything, including the devil, right? But those that get on board, they're gonna love it. And of course, some are going to go to the extreme with it, but then there's going to be the bulk of them that's going to be here in the middle, that is going to help to bring some sort of normalcy to it, and then we'll learn how to operate with it. I believe that's coming, but the danger is getting to the other side of that, of the normalization.
Well, yeah. We don't want to turn out to be like, the pods in a thing in the Matrix, right? Where everything is taking place in our head and we're plugged in and all we are is blobs in the goo, right? Well, thanks both of you. I see, it's going to, if we do it right, like you've just described, both of you, if we do it right, it's going to free up massive potential because it has the ability to get rid of a whole bunch of crap that I was doing that I didn't need to do. If I have sense enough to retain the stuff that really develops and sharpens me, and I take the extra time to like go in deep and do stuff that I didn't have time to do today, this week, this month, and we use it that way, then there's real upside there. You guys have any closing thoughts?
Wait a minute, I need to consult chat.
Okay.
I'm just kidding.
What are my closing thoughts here?
I think, I think faith has got to be in here somewhere. The faith in the trusting the future, and it's not going to be without pain. It never is. I once visited a shaman, and she told me that Earth is like the Ivy League of the galaxy. And I said, well, that's an interesting expression. Why did you say it that way? And she said, because it's so hard here. And Earth is a school, right, for us to learn all of this. And and the wheel turns. So I think trusting the future, that's where I choose to stand.
I love
Cool.
it. I love it. I was going to say that face the change head on, right? It's gonna present its own set of challenges. I do believe that life has its way of being its own best teacher if we're open to learning the lesson. So same thing with AI is just be open to endless possibilities that it can bring us, and understand that even with the challenges, as we embrace it, use it for what it is intended to do, right? Help us to bring some efficiency to some things, as well as it could potentially be game changing if used right, in the manner at which it serves us in our businesses. So I think this is good. We get the opportunity to say that we're here when it first started, and we remember when, and take that and embrace it, and then move forward.
Mm.
Well, thanks both of you guys. I really appreciate it. We have the opportunity. We create our lives. We know that from a physics perspective and every other way. And this tool doesn't change any of that.
Right.
It's just a new toy in the toolbox, and it's a big flipping toy, but it's still a toy in the toolbox. Lori, thanks for being
I
with
would
me
say
today.
one more thing.
Go for it.
I think it's really important that we're intentional in the way that we think about it. Right? It's that which we focus on expands, right? And so it just without that intentionality, it can either happen to us or for us.
Love it. Absolutely. Well, thanks, Lori, for being here with me today.
Thank you, Kellan, for having me.
Tabatha, thanks for having me. Being here with me to talk about this stuff. I appreciate both of you.
Yes, thank
Appreciate
you
you
for
too much.
the
So much.
invitation. Thank you.
That was wonderful.
So, listeners, I want you to pay attention here because this is different. If you've been following these coaching podcasts, every one of them is like way different in some other galaxy. And that's good because that means that people are thinking about this. And the experienced coaches have brought different perspectives. And the point of all of this stuff, like all the other episodes, is to give you the tools, the perspective, and spark some thinking so that you can create your ultimate life.
Never hold back and you'll never ask why. Open your heart and this time around.
Right here, right now. Your opportunity for massive growth is right in front of you. Every episode gives you practical tips and practices that will change everything. If you want to know more, go to KellanFluckigerMedia.com. If you want more free tools, go here, YourUltimateLife.ca. Subscribe, share.
Stand with your heart in the sky and your feet on the ground.